Well, welcome to Cowper's COVID quarantine variety show today, everybody. Today, we're going to change things up a little bit. We're actually not going to do a quiz show. Instead, I wanted to introduce you to two really cool people who I just met. I heard them on the radio on the CBC. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Heidi Jacobs and Dr. Dale Jacobs. Dale and Heidi, these are two local authors. Now, they're authors, but they just happen to be local. What do authors do? They write books. And as you can see, both these people love to read books. And when you read a lot of books, you find yourself writing books too. I found that's pretty true. You find that to be true, guys?
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah. How many books have you read, Dale?
How many books have I read? Last year I read 115.
Fantastic. Heidi?
So,
yeah, I read a comparatively scrawny 60 last year. So,
and you work in a library, so you're around books all the time too, right, Heidi?
I am. Yep. I was until COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. What a bummer, eh?
Yep.
I invited you on the show today because I heard you talking on the radio about your book that was published last year, and it's called 100 Miles of Baseball. 50 games, one summer. And I was just in such awe that you pulled this off. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about it today. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Where did you get this idea to write a book and do this?
Well, we had season tickets for the Tigers for a long time, partial season tickets. And about 2016, we got a little bit tired of just going to major league games, and this idea slowly developed, and we decided, well, what happens if we go to all different kinds of baseball? If we go to some high school games and university games and minor league, and we saw some historic baseball where they played 1865 rules, and so we wanted to explore the area a bit, different kinds of baseball, and we wanted, from the beginning, we wanted to write about it. So I guess that's where it sort of comes from.
How do you write a book together? How do two people write a book? How did you do that?
Well, we both took a whole lot of notes when we watched the baseball games, and a lot of people were really nervous, like, what are these people writing about? So there we had our little notebooks, and we were writing away, and then we each typed up our sections, and then we put them together, and magically we have a book.
The kids these days, they call that a collab. Have you heard that word before?
Yeah. It would definitely be a collab. Yep.
That's the teen word. It's a collab. Yeah, it's a cool teen word. Why baseball?
For me, it goes back to my dad. I mean, I grew up watching the Expos and then the Blue Jays with my dad, and going to ball tournaments at the lake and stuff like that. So I've loved baseball my whole life.
Mm.
And I just kind of went along for the ride, and I started going to baseball games when I met Dale, and then we started going to a lot of baseball games, and now we have a book about it. So
very cool.
The rest is history. Yep.
I learned to score as a really young lad. My mom started taking me to Tigers games. I still have my very first fitted Tigers cap I got when I was about 7 years old. She worked at Coca-Cola, and she would often get the Coca-Cola tickets from the CEO of the company. She was a secretary in the office. So she'd get 2 tickets, and she'd take me to the ball game. And I'll never forget the feelings of being in that stadium. I'm really interested in finding out. Let me tell you something that's been happening at our school during virtual announcements. I posted that I wanted to get recommendations from kids about books that they're reading. So I'm really interested in hearing from two authors about books that inspired you, that you might have read when you were in elementary school. Do you have a couple of books that you thought about from elementary school?
Oh, yeah, I think about them all the time. I loved Anne of Green Gables when I was little, in part because I had really red hair, and there was a character from Canada with red hair, and she was really funny. and she had all sorts of adventures and lived in her imagination, and she liked stories and she wanted to write stories. And I remember being really inspired by that, and I read them over and over and over again. I think I still have them somewhere up here somewhere, but yeah.
Have you traveled to PEI to see where that stuff took place?
I did, and it was really, really magical. So we were there, I don't know, maybe four or 5 years ago, and it was a really great thing. And I called my mom and I said, "I'm here." She read them out loud to me. So I have a lot of connections with books. I read a lot when I was little, and I loved the magical places where books can take you.
I loved the Hardy Boys books when I was a kid and just devoured them. And I read a lot of comic books, and I teach courses on comic books, and I'm really interested in that. And that started when I was a kid. I mean, 9-10 years old on. So yeah, that kind of stuff.
When you began to write, you mentioned comic books, did you also sketch some of your books, or were you simply the writer?
I'm just a writer. I can't draw at all. So I've actually never done any comic book writing. It's nothing I've ever got into this, but that's definitely something I've always read and still read. But yeah, that's a whole different kind of writing. It would be fun to do sometime, but I certainly can't do the drawing part of it.
Yeah, the graphic novels are very popular in our schools these days. Kind of like comics in novel style, and there are so many different versions in our schools that our kids are enjoying. I also think about, we've got another local author, Jeff Lemire, who's I call him an author, but he's an artist. He's written a number of books, graphic novels that I appreciate so much too. Have you seen any of his work?
Oh yeah, I know Jeff quite well. I just edited a collection of interviews with Jeff Lemire Conversations that University of Mississippi Press is publishing later this year. So I know Jeff really well. I've had him in my class, and he's a great guy.
I think there's a comic book in your past as well. You guys have also written another work that our kids might find quite interesting. Can you talk about that other book? Do you have it with you there, Heidi? Do you have a copy?
I do, and we have a copy for your students to win, potentially. So this one's a book also about baseball, and it's about history just down the road in Chatham, about the first Black baseball team to win the Ontario Provincial Championships. And it's done by another great cartoonist and graphic novelist, is Scott Chandler, who some of your readers might know from his, what is his series, Dale?
He has a series of graphic novels called The Three Thieves, which are really great, and they're aimed for kids.
Oh, super. So we're getting all kinds of recommendations for our kids today. We appreciate that very much.
Yep.
What did you learn through both of these projects about yourself, about history, about baseball? What did you learn? Give me some key learnings for both of you.
Well, one of the things that I learned, and this might be great for your students too, is that you don't have to go very far to learn really interesting things. So we had 100 miles, which is actually quite big, but just in our little area, there's so many different things that we hadn't been to in terms of baseball, so many different kinds of teams. So you don't have to go to the big leagues. You don't have to go to Detroit. There's really interesting, great baseball right in our own backyard. And so that's one of the things I think, and I'm not sure I was surprised by, but I was reminded by, sometimes we think to learn big and exciting things, you have to go far, but sometimes it's just right here in your own backyard. So I think that's one of the things that I took away.
I think for me, along those lines, it was very much about learning how to see, learning what's important when you watch a baseball game, kind of watching it for its own sake, that sort of trying to look at the small things like how fielders position themselves, or what a pitcher is trying to do to get a batter out, and watching for those small kinds of nuances of the game was really important to me. And it was really an experiment in watching without cheering for a specific team. I mean, we watched all these games and we didn't care who won. We just wanted to see an interesting baseball game. And it's a different way of watching baseball or watching any sport.
What's the first game you're going to go to once we're back to baseball, or have you already been to see Toronto or anybody.
I would really like to go to see a baseball game at Woodsley, the Woodsley Oriole Park. It's one of my favorite places. We also really like Lacasse Park and to come see. So I think I'm really excited to see the small baseball games instead of the big ones right now. That's what I think I really miss.
Yeah, me too. And I think with everything, that's if they play, that's probably what we will see first is one of the local games.
Yeah.
Either at one of those parks or over at Micmac Park or somewhere around here.
Those small town games are where it's really at, and that's what you guys are reminding me of. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk very briefly about your trip to Woodsley? Because I mean, that's just down the road from all of us. Of course, this school that I work at is in Amherstburg, but they've got baseball fields too. That field out in Woodsley is pretty special. Can you maybe just talk about why that's special to you for a moment?
Yeah, it's just this perfect little green field carved out of, cornfields, and it's just a lovely place to watch baseball.
One of the things I love about it is I can never quite remember where it is. I mean, I know kind of, because we're not from this area, so it always takes me a while every spring to remember where it is. And it's not really well marked on a map, so it's sometimes a little bit magical to land there. And then you get there and it's in the middle of a field and there are dogs that sort of wander around on the edge and trees and birds in the trees and people just getting together and watching baseball. And it's quiet and it doesn't have any of the gimmicks of the big major league games. It's just sort of pure baseball, the perfect thing to do on a summer. And you never know what you're going to see there. We've seen some great baseball. We've seen some bizarre things happen on the field. But that's the beauty of baseball. So to me, that's Woodsley.
I also really like the fields at the Libro Center in Amherstburg. That's a nice place to watch baseball too. I've been there a few times to see the University of Windsor Lancers club team play, and those are always good games. And all of these small little fields around Essex County are such wonderful places to watch baseball.
Yeah, actually, the Libro Field's got that special field too, that accessible field, so anybody can play baseball there. Baseball's such an interesting game, There's an independent side to it. There's a team side to it. It's unlike any other sport because it's just that the chance from the dugout, the supporting your teammates, the feeling of pressure that you get as a singular player. It's such an interesting game, The Americans created a pretty amazing game. What I really was hoping that you could maybe share with our kids is I know that we're going to have some of these students at my school are going to grow up to be writers possibly. We're all going to be readers, but you never know which kindergarten student, which grade 7 is really taking an interest in writing or graphic noveling and will become the next writer like you two have become. Can you give any advice for our would-be writers and authors in our audience?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the first thing you need to do is you need to read a lot and you need to read whatever you want. And you need going to a library or a bookstore and just seeing what's interesting and getting a stack of books and working your way through them is a great thing. But also, I think paying attention to what's around you, listening to people, looking for stories, writing things down. When I was little, I used to make all sorts of little books with pictures, and I did tons of that. I had no idea when I was little that I would actually write books. But I look back and I think, yeah, they're all about little stories, about a dog down my street. Or actually, just recently, I published this book about, can you see that?
Yeah.
This is Klaus. This is a little pandemic project that I did with my friend Lydia Palmer. She illustrated it, and it's about the little stray cat who moved into my backyard. So there's a story absolutely everywhere. And so that's what I would encourage all you young writers out there to read and write and look around and pay attention to what's around you.
Dale, do you have any specific advice for our young authors?
Pretty much what Heidi said, reading and reading and reading widely, anything you can get your hands on. And then telling stories to your parents, to your friends, starting to write. And then once you start writing, just getting in the habit and doing it all the time. I mean, I think the best writers are the ones where writing does become a habit and reading becomes a habit.
Yeah, we've really been trying to push reading during this time of school closure, because it's the one activity you can certainly do anywhere you want, anywhere in the world. You can always read. I never leave my home to go anywhere where I'm going to be sitting for some time without a book in my hand, and of course these days without a podcast to listen to or without a digital book on my phone. Reading is such a great pastime because you can essentially be doing nothing but just absolutely growing your brain by listening to a book or reading a book. Yeah,
and you can be anywhere you want to. I mean, especially since we can't really travel or go very far, it's really exciting to pick up a book and go somewhere else for an afternoon or even an hour.
Yeah, reading takes you places. Look at what it's done for both of you. Yes?
Yeah, no, it's a great gift, and we're really grateful for reading.
It's been a real pleasure talking with both of you today about your books, about reading and writing. I wonder if you could oblige me and maybe just see if we could do a little quiz show, a little impromptu quiz show here. So we are turning the variety show into Cowper's COVID Quarantine Quiz Show, and we've got Dale and Heidi here, two baseball writers most recently, and we're going to test their baseball knowledge. Okay, question number 1. There is a player who successfully got onto base. His teammate comes up to bat, cracks the ball, and this player that's on base runs to the next base. However, the second baseman has the ball, and he starts running back to first base. The second baseman throws the ball to the first baseman, and then he runs back, and now he's stuck between two bases. What is this called?
And they put it on it.
Anybody care to guess?
Well, it's
Dale,
funny, really.
It is funny to watch.
We always called it a pickle when I was growing up.
You're in a pickle.
Yeah,
Awesome.
pickle.
I love it. That was answer number 2. We called it getting in a hot box.
Hot box, that's the other one.
Yeah, pickle or hot box. Very good. Very good. Okay, you got one out of 3. There's always 3 questions. All right. Question number 2. There are 3 players on base. A player comes up to bat and cranks one over the fence. What is that called? Heidi, do you know?
Well, that would be a grand slam home run.
Grand slam home run. Very good. Very good. That's 2. Number 3. Who is the best baseball team? Professional.
Heidi?
Well,
professional?
Detroit Tigers.
I would have to say the Tigers.
All right, that's exactly the correct answer. Of course, there's 50% of our audience are going to disagree with us and say it's the Toronto Blue Jays. It's been a pleasure talking with both of you today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your work, and your passion for writing and for baseball with us.
Thank you for having us to your school. We're really, really thrilled to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
We're going to put your books in our library, and you've also graciously offered some books and some giveaways. So I'll make sure that students that watch and that participate get a chance to win some of those great prizes. Thank you, Heidi.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
You have a lovely day, a great summer, and here's to you guys watching your first ball game in Woodsley this summer. Okay, cross our fingers for you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Good luck with your interviews, and I look forward to watching. And thanks very much. I look forward to running into you and maybe sharing some Cracker Jacks.
That would be really great.